Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Lost Coast podcast. Today's guest, we have Nikki Gianni, and she's a small business architect. So she's going to teach us some strategies that she teaches business owners. Welcome to the show, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Cory. How are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you on the show today.
For
Why
sure.
don't you tell the listeners here, kind of give them a little background of who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Great, sure. Yeah. So my name is Nikki Gianni. I'm in Southern California, Oxnard, and I am the small business architect, which means that I help small businesses find profit in their business that they didn't know they had. And I also help them with their leadership, people, and process challenges that they're experiencing. I've realized over time that small business owners, for the most part, they really enjoy doing whatever it is that they started to sell, right? That's why they're doing it. But they don't think about the strategy of business. And if they can survive the first few years, they're doing great, right? But imagine how well they would be doing if they implemented some strategies in their business, then they would be doing fantastically. So that's my goal. And that's when I come in to help them teach them strategies that are simple and easy to do and not expensive. And it really helps their business.
So give us some kind of examples, so what's like a small piece that most businesses seem to struggle with that you come in and you can usually see right away and kind of get them headed in the right direction.
Yeah, so market dominating position is, I think, the most significant one that I see that people don't have. So I was looking through a contract, those contractor books that you get in the mail, like that have like all the discounts and stuff like that. Well, they all had discounts, which is not a good thing to do, and I can explain that in a second. But they just had the discounts. That's all they were doing was competing on price, and they didn't have anything that was special about them in their ad. And so if you don't tell your clientele, your potentials, that what's special about you, then you're gonna have to compete on price. And that's what all of them were doing. But if they just had something that was great about them that they offer that nobody else does, they would have something to stand on, as opposed to discounts. Because when you do discounts, it's guys, don't do that. Because if you look at like maybe like $100 widget, okay, and it costs you $70 to make and you get 30% $30 profit, let's just say. If you discount that 10%, what is that? That's $20. So it's going to take you double the amount of sales to take care of just 10% discount. And that doesn't even, nobody even does 10%. They do 20, 30, 40%, right? So they're killing themselves and they're killing their not only their revenue, but their profit. That's the most important thing, profit. Yeah, so don't discount. Figure out what's special about you and play that out. Play that up. I have one example of a daycare center. They were struggling, they weren't getting anybody to come in. And but they had some really great teachers in there that were teaching young little guys how to read really quickly, really early in life. And so that's what they put on their advertisements. Your kid will learn to read before kindergarten. And they filled up in no time. So it's just little things like that really help. So it's a market dominating position is definitely important.
I can see that. I totally agree with you on the whole discounting thing because in the financial world, everybody talks about average rates of return, right? Well,
Mhm.
average rate of return isn't your real rate of return. So you got to be real careful when you start playing with the numbers like that. Like you say, now you got to sell twice as much product to make the same amount of income. So now that's really twice as much work. So
Yes.
you're even discounting yourself in the whole aspect of everything. You're going downhill faster than you are if you just sold it at the regular price.
Yes, yes. And one of my another strategy that I teach them is to increase your prices. Because let's say, you most business owners don't even increase their prices ever because they're so afraid of being beat out by price. But again, small businesses, they have a special thing about them. That's what makes them unique. That's why they went into business to begin with. And so you play off of that instead, because I have a good example. There was a limousine service, and he was in business for like 30 years, and he had a good, clientele group of them, about 4,000 people that he, regularly interacted with, as far as regularly goes, anyways. But he never increased his prices ever, you know, and we said, so what if you did just 10%? Do you think all those loyal people that you have would leave? Because if it was $100 to $110 to go to the airport, you really think that they would just take off because they were upset with you because of the 10%? And I said, and if they did, then who cares? Because they don't have any loyalty to you anyways. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, I don't know. We finally convinced him to do it. He gained about $40,000 worth of profit in like 6 months. So, or less. And yeah, so it's just these little things that you're afraid to do because you think that price is so important when it's really not.
Yeah.
It's your specialty, he had a great crew, he had great service, always on time, never late, that kind of thing. And that's what he played off of, and it worked.
Yeah, you need to make the small incremental increases, stretch over time, and nobody hardly notices. I mean, if you got to raise your prices 50% or something because you're so far behind the eight ball, you're a little late to the game. You need to, you got to get started. I mean, inflation doesn't stop, so
No,
it's every year
it
you
doesn't.
wait, your dollar is getting worse, you're making less. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's a tough racket, and it's hard for business owners to see that. I mean, trust me, I know I was in construction. We started out, okay, we're going to be, the cheapest per hour,
Yep.
Well, that was an education, because you find guys that are charging almost twice as much as you, they're still just as busy as you are,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
so it's like, well, we had to start creeping our prices up and, finally get to that level where you need to be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and because your quality is going to suffer if you lower your prices so much. So for 25 years, I was with the Department of Defense, and most of that time, about 22 of those years was in acquisition. So I bought things for a living for over 20 years, like a girl's dream, right, to do that. But yeah, so we would have this thing called best value. And so we would get bids in, and it didn't matter just about the price, because that would be lowest price technically acceptable. There was different categories that we used, and this was best value. So this was like, we looked at everything, their technical proposal, their price, their past performance, and then we made a decision based on that. And a lot of times we didn't pick the lowest price because it's not always that important. It's the quality and the speed and all that other stuff. There's so many different things that you can pick out in your business that is special, that you do, that nobody else does, or that very few people do. And you'd be surprised how much you can play off of that.
Yeah, yeah. Reminds me that, you can have two out of the three pieces of the triangle, You can have it done cheap, you can have it done good, or you can have it done fast. You get to
Exactly.
have two of them, but I get to keep one. So you just pick how it works,
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
Totally.
exactly. So these business owners now, you're coming into like small businesses, large businesses. Is there kind of a breaking point, or what's the structure size in these companies that you're helping?
As long as they have some revenue to go off of, right? So that, because I don't want them to get broken by my fee, right? But I also offer a money back guarantee with my fee, and I can tell you about that later. But yeah, so it could be anything over 100K in revenue, and it can go all the way up, as long as they're open-minded to different strategies. And sometimes the bigger they are, the easier it is, because they have more manpower to do all of these different things that I can tell them about, because the strategies are easy, quote unquote, right? But you have to have time to do them, right? And you have to have the ability to delegate and all that other stuff, because this one person, it's very difficult to do everything all at once, but I guide them on how to hire things out and subcontract and whatever if they need to. But yeah, so it doesn't really matter how small or big the organization is. It's just that, are they willing to look at themselves and be, pragmatic or whatever, and say, okay, I can change some of these things and it's going to be a big benefit. And if they do that, then it doesn't really matter how big or small they are, to be honest. I wish I had better parameters, but I've worked with so many different kinds of businesses that it's really hard for me to pick which ones I want to do the most, stick with. Somebody said, oh, well, it'd be so much easier if you can market that way. But well, I love animals, as you heard from my dog barking. Maybe I'll just work with vets or something. I don't know, but I haven't gotten that far yet.
Well, I mean, there's a kind of that I hear it all the time. Oh, you got to find your niche market, you know.
Hmm.
But it's hard to do sometimes when you have something you know that helps everybody. I mean, it's
Hmm.
like us in the financial industry. You know, what's your niche market? Well, so when you start niching it down, it makes it kind of like, well, I don't want to leave anybody out that I know can help. So,
Yeah.
but I guess it's I got to find that happy medium where you're kind of gauging, but still flexible enough to reach out and grab the rest of them, I guess. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say between 100,000 and 2 million for as far as revenue goes. But if they have problems with leadership issues, like if they don't know how to lead their team or themselves, right? Or if they have, they don't know how to set up their processes are just a big mess and they are convoluted, or they don't have a process, they don't have a standard operating procedure. Or if they don't know how to hire people. They're having issues retaining good people and stuff like that. I can help them with those things too. Like, so there's pain points that I can help them with that I specialize in because I've had so much experience with those things. So the revenue doesn't necessarily matter as much as like what their issues are.
Right, yeah, and getting them to accept them.
Yes, yes.
They,
They're like,
they
well,
don't like to
I
be
don't know how.
told. They don't
I
like
don't
to
know
be
why I'm
told.
not making any more money. I don't know, but I don't have any good employees, and I don't sleep because I do everything myself. It's like, okay, well, let's take a look.
Yes, I bet sometimes you walk into a company business and you gotta tell them the cold hard truth, like, hey,
Yeah.
you've got to make some major adjustments here in yourself before this
Yes.
business is gonna get to where it
It,
needs to be.
it's so true. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen that show Bar Rescue.
Yeah.
With when he like screams and yells at everybody, and it's like, okay, well, I'm a New Yorker, but I'm not like that at all. But it's like waking up to the hard truth, right? Because sometimes people need to be kind of smacked around a little bit, and like not literally, of course, but just like woken up. Oh my goodness, this is really happening, and because they don't realize it. It's very difficult to look at yourself sometimes and say, okay, this is what's wrong with me, and it's not because you're at fault or you're flawed. It's just human nature to not do that, and that's why I have a coach. Everybody should have a coach in life, whether it's for your business or your professional career or your life or your family, whatever. You can, if you have a coach, you're probably better off than if you didn't,
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely
Yeah.
need to be open-minded.
Yeah, coach, mentor, however you want to word it, find that one person that's willing to help you and
Exactly.
guide and direct,
Yes.
so it's that I totally agree. I mean, in business, when I got started, I got my license and then I brought another actual contractor on my team. So I kind of was feeding off him on what he was doing for business. And then we just kind of actually joined forces together because he was good at certain things and I was good at certain things. So it kind of made
Perfect.
a nice little marriage really between the two of us.
Hmm. Yeah, I would love
So,
to have that. I wish I could find somebody like that. I'm looking.
well, maybe one of our listeners here is like, I got to talk to her. We can do this.
Yeah, come and
Yeah.
join me. I could definitely use another person to help me out here, and we can help each other.
Well, so in that context, what about virtual assistants? I mean, you're kind of not you're a coach and an architect. Do you lead them in direction, maybe just getting a virtual assistant to maybe do some
Mhm.
of the stuff?
Absolutely, yes. And there's a wide range of virtual assistants nowadays. So I met somebody on Alignable, just like I met you, who she's a staffing agency for more complex work like CPAs and directors of HR and stuff like that, but they're based out of the country. So they're like a third, not even a third, two-thirds cheaper
Yeah.
than the United States. And at first I was like, oh man, that's kind of, I don't know if I like that, because that's taking away from an American's capability to make money and stuff. But she says they don't want the jobs.
Yeah.
They want more money, even than this. So it's definitely an option to do virtual assistants and for almost anything, or you can do these things called fractional blah blah blah. So it could be a fractional marketing officer or chief marketing officer or chief financial officer. They have all these different things now that you can just have like a part-timer on your books and you don't have to pay, all the special payroll taxes because they're a 1099 employee. And then you can get the best of both worlds, um, get their skill set and, and not have to do it yourself and pay a lot less. So yeah, virtual assistants are definitely great. From what I've heard from my, you know, colleagues and clients, Colombia and the Philippines seem to have like the best virtual assistants. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've been told. And in the Philippines, even though they're in a totally different time zone, they will work with you. It doesn't matter if it's a night or not, for them.
Right.
So that's good. And the Colombia is on our time zone,
Right.
so or close to it. So
Close to it, yeah.
Very good.
Well, so does that just kind of puts more, proof in that you're willing to bring extra people into the fold with these businesses, bringing the virtual assistants in. I mean, do you work alongside like their bookkeepers and maybe their CPAs and stuff too, in a way to help kind of, get that whole rounded experience so everybody's on the same page?
Absolutely. So one of the other areas that I focus in on for businesses is cutting costs, because costing of goods and services, that's your gross profit margin, right? Like
Yep.
that's it. So we go in and we look through all of their statements and figure out where what their suppliers are charging, and start negotiating with their suppliers if they have a physical product, and start cutting costs. A lot of times when you are working with somebody, you don't think to ask them to cut their prices either, right?
Right.
But I'm positive that you could probably get a better deal if you asked. Number one, you have to ask, or just shop around a little bit. And if you just tell them you're shopping around, then usually they'll be like, okay, well, I'll do it for you, especially if they're dealing with like massive amounts of, in bulk or something like that. So yeah, we definitely worked together with all of your staff, and I'll come in and I'll interview the whole crew and see what's going on, because if your employees aren't happy, then you have problems too, of course. So, and they all have to have the same message that you have. If I walk in the door and everybody has something different to say about the business, that's not good. It should all be very similar in nature, and they should all have the same message, and they should all be telling the public the same things. So yeah, it's definitely a team effort.
Yeah. That's funny. You mentioned ask your suppliers to give you a discount. Well, hopefully the suppliers aren't working with you, but you're telling everybody not to give any discounts, So yes, we got to be careful who's helping who here.
You never know, right? You never
Yeah.
know. Well, and it could be just, that maybe you bundle things together to get, a better deal.
Yeah.
Because that's what I teach them too. Bundling is one of my techniques, for sure, to, so I worked with this one restaurant who wanted to get more people in. And so they were discounting 25% off of a meal for two. And but I said, well, instead of doing that, that's equal to be about $11 off the price, right? So I said, why don't we give them some extra stuff instead of discounting?
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, we'll give them a bottle of wine and 2 desserts, which equal to be about $7 or $8 in cost, right? But they got to keep their money that they were going to discount, and they get a better reputation, so they give more. So giving more is usually cheaper, a lot cheaper than discounting, and it makes you look better. So yeah, there's different ways to do that. So those suppliers out there, that want to work with me, we don't have to cut prices all the time.
No, that's good. Yeah, I can see that, the give, that's people like to be given something,
Absolutely.
The discounts kind of take it for granted because they think you're making money already. You know what I mean? You just inflated the cost to give you the
Yes,
discount, right? But the
absolutely.
give is actually something they can see and have, and I can see that.
It's tangible, yeah.
Yeah, tangible. I mean, like I'm doing the podcasting as a give to everybody who comes on my show to, have some kind of promotion for them. It's just,
right.
That saying, help enough people get what they want, and then you'll end up getting what you want.
Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely, in business and in life too. If you're a giver, you're going to be much happier because it makes you feel better about life and yourself, and you're helping other people, and it comes back to you. Karma, and I don't know if I should say this or not because it's not very nice to say, but karma is a bitch or a blessing. It just depends on how you behave, right? It's
Yep.
just if you're going to be nice. And some people say to me, "Oh well, they're still trucking, they're still doing good and they're horrible." I said, "Don't worry, it'll catch up to them. You might not know about it, but it will." So yeah, it's definitely a blessing if you're a good person.
But isn't that funny how everybody worries about what somebody else is doing? You know, it's like, no, if you worry about yourself, then everything will be okay. Worry about
Isn't that
yourself.
amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's great. So how do our listeners, find you and look you up so we can, they can maybe get some business strategy coaching done?
Yeah, so all of those different I have 12 different strategies that I focus in on. I have 40 different things that I can work with them on, but the 12 strategies are my foundation for everything. And so I wrote a book about them, and I would love to give your listeners my book for free. You can download it, and it's at nikkigianni.com/free-book.
There you go.
So so I should have given you a better URL for that one. But that's the one I have right now. So yeah, nikkigianni.com/free-book. And then they can get my book, they can download it. It comes with some notes pages in it. And if you want it a hard copy, I can mail it to you, and I made it in a spiral. So that way you can like take notes and make it easier to use. And it's a cute little book. It's like this big, it's so cute. I love it. But yeah, so that way they can understand the strategies themselves. And if they want to implement them on their own, feel free, be my guest. That's what it's there for. But if they need help with them, give me a call.
Hey, that's pretty good. Yeah, we'll see how. I think every listener on here better take her up on that offer. That's a beautiful offer.
Thank you. Yeah. Definitely paying it forward. It's a very important thing. And if just one listener can get something out of what we talked about today, I'd be very happy.
Yeah. So give us an example of a client that you've had where they've gone through your 12 steps, and they've done it, and you've helped them walk through and how it changed their business.
Yeah, so there's so many different situations where that's happened. We had a dentist one time. Actually, you know what? No, I won't talk about him. That's a little more complex. But so there's a psychiatrist or psychologist, child psychologist that was trying to get business on his website, and he was doing okay. He was wasn't bad or anything like that, but he wasn't niched down very far. He was just like doing everything on this website, right? And so we changed it to just specialize in one piece of adolescent behavior, right? Instead of all the different things that can happen with a teenager. And his business went through the roof. Like he couldn't handle as much anymore. He had to like slow down. So yeah, there's so many little stories like that where we just tweaked things just a little bit, and it changed their life. It changed their whole way of doing business, their whole they went into a different category because we implemented some of their strategies. So yeah, he was a great example. We did a dentist with the same thing, that we focused in on people who don't have insurance. And so we created some advertisements that's focused in on that. And his business went through the roof too. So yeah, I mean, like I'm talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit that they increased by. So yeah, it's pretty amazing how these strategies work so well, and it doesn't take much time or effort to do it. It's
That's
really
what I was going to
amazing.
ask you. What is the time frame there? What's kind of the expected ROI, the rate of return that you're going to get, when they start working with you? What's the average?
Yeah, so they should see something happen. So the plan is usually about a year long to implement all 12 strategies in their business. But I have a special program that has like over like 500 million different algorithms that calculates all these things for me. It's really cool. And it gives me the implementation strategy, like the timeline. So that way things compound on one another, right?
Okay.
So if you just did one thing, it would be different if you did this one in order, So like the 12th strategy is going to be making so much more profit than if we would have just done that one by itself, you know? So about a year for all 12, but you'll start seeing different effects if you do the work that's involved in it, and which isn't too much. It's not crazy. And usually within the first month or two, you should start seeing changes. I mean, if we do if we do price increases and cost cutting, that's immediate profit.
Yeah.
You know, because there's not, you know, boom, it's gone. You know, change from an expense to profit. So yeah, these things happen fairly quickly. And I also give a money back guarantee. So my approach is, if you don't double my fee in your first 6 months in profit, I'll give you money back.
Win-win. How can anybody lose?
Yeah, I'm that confident in the strategies that I don't have any problem doing that. You know, just give me a little bit of time so that way we can, you know, work together. And if you're after 3 months and if you're not happy, that's fine too. You know, I'm not gonna nickel and dime people when it comes to that, because it's usually when they're not seeing any results, it's because they're not doing what I'm telling them to do. And so the one thing that I wanted to, you know, say is that I'm not a consultant, I'm a coach, right? So I teach people how to do things, but I'm not going to necessarily do it for them.
Right.
I will work side by side with you with certain things that are really complex and difficult to do on your own, like processes and stuff like that, or maybe hiring or leadership, those 3 different categories that I mentioned before, because those are challenging to deal with. And you might need an expert on your team initially, right? But I'll teach you how to deal with it, so that way you don't need me for very long anyways to doing actual nitty-gritty work. So yeah, not too long. That was a long answer.
No, that was great. I mean, for what you're going to get out, like you say, if you're helping them, you know, get hundreds of thousands of dollars, I mean, a year is a very short period of time. Because if they don't do anything, they didn't even make an extra dollar, you know, usually. I mean, they're just kind of sitting and stagnant and keeping in the same program, and
That's right.
just being content, I guess, with where they're at, which is, I mean, if you're content, those are for people who are content, I guess. But, you know,
Yeah.
you
But
know,
if you're
I
having
always like,
problems,
I got a saying, you know, success is the first failure, because if you succeed and then you stop, you don't have another goal. So now you're at the failure level again. You always got to succeed forward. So, you know, it's just part of the process of growing.
Yeah. And if you're like on the fence about it, you're like, oh, well, you know, I really could use a lot, you know, some more profit or more revenue or whatever you're thinking. And you're like, well, I'll just wait it out. Well, where do you want to be a year from now?
Yeah.
You know, and where were you a year before? Are you in the same place that you were? You know, did waiting help you then?
Yeah.
Probably not, right? So yeah, and the way I structure my fee, you know, if it doesn't work for you, then I'll give it back to you. You know, if we tried our best and it didn't work, okay, I give. But I don't think you'll have that problem.
Yeah, the timing, like you say, you know, where were you a year ago? Where do you want to be in the future? And people think, oh, it's too late for me to start saving or start, you know, they say, oh, it's too late. I should have done it 2 years ago. I always tell them, well, 2 years from now, you're going to say you should have started today.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
get started today. Make some kind of effort. Move forward, and you'll be much happier.
Yes.
Get down the road a little bit.
Yeah, you must see that all the time in your business with money, you know, with finance and stuff like that, because people are like, oh, I should have started. What's the point now? It's like, well, there's a point, you know.
Yeah.
Don't be silly. Don't consider yourself a failure forever just because you didn't do you know, some things before. It's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Something with
like we all wish we'd started sooner, but
yes, but it's
we
okay.
didn't. We
Start
didn't.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm in another master's program. Just because the VA will pay for it for me, you know, so I'm doing it just because they'll pay, and it'll benefit my business. You know, it's strategic communications, but I'm not young. Just letting you know. By any means. And I already have one, so it's not like I needed one, you know, but I'm like, what the heck, let's do it just because it's available and I can do it. And yeah, it's so if I could do it, you could do it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, Nikki, this was great. I think the listeners got a lot of information out there. I mean, they got access to this free book now. I mean, everybody listens to this should be taking you up on it. I mean,
I hope so.
yeah,
That'd be
I mean,
great.
it's a good, and then in that book has all your contact stuff so they can still reach out to you and get all that good
That's
stuff
right.
from you.
Yes, yes, sir. So yeah, NikkiGianni.com/free-book.
There you go. All right, everybody. I want to thank you, Nikki, for being on the show today. We're going
Thank
to bring
you.
this
Thank you so
to a
much for having me.
close. And this is the Lost Coast Podcast. And we thank Nikki for being with us today. And to all of our listeners, please reach out to her, take her up on her free book. And we are signing off, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.